Hey everybody, peace and blessings. I am Letitia, the light worker, 42-year-old millennial mom of 5 kids. I am a homeschooling, home managing mom. I'm an immigrant living in the US for right now. I am an intuitive, INFJ empath, energy reader, uh, idealist, messenger of truth, love, and light. And what I would like to discuss today in this video is I want to talk about this book. I have done a video talking about this book before. One or two I've talked about this book. And I really just highly recommend that everybody should read this book. And I know there's lots and lots of books that we should read. There's lots of information about lots of stuff. But one of the things that I like about this book, first of all, is because this woman just ran for president, and I also believe that she won. If everything was fair and square and it wasn't like billionaires putting in billions and billions and billions of numbers that I don't even know how to call, of money to deceive people and to manipulate things and to maybe even hack things, most likely hack things. If it was a free and fair election, I 100% believe with all confidence that it would have been a landslide on the other end. That's what I believe. I am, like I said, I'm an intuitive, and I have a lot of reason to believe what I believe, but that's a video for another time. What I really want to do is talk about this book. I want to highly recommend that you read this book. But what I want to discuss and read some excerpts from is chapter 9. Okay, and chapter 9 is called Smart on Security. I am down to the last chapter now. I'm practically finishing chapter 10. I'm listening to it on Audible, but I bought a hard copy because I wanted to have it to be able to highlight things that stood out to me that I would possibly wanted to share with other people, and Smart on Security is absolutely, to me, the most important chapter to be read in this book. But the reason that I recommend this book is because this book touches on all aspects of the things, the problems, the challenges, the things that was happening, that has been happening in America, that has been causing problems for a long time. The issues that people have been having, it's very informative about a lot of things about America that people might not have been aware of, like things that were going on. It touches on her experience, her personal experience, her experiences in the various jobs that she had in government, because as she would have said in her campaign, for the people, like every job that she's ever had was for the people. She's always chosen to be a public servant. She has always chosen to work for the people, represent the people, speak up for the people, fight for the people, put her body and her mind and her being on the line for the people. So this woman has always been a definition of a public servant. And as I listened to her tell her story and her experiences, I listened to all the experiences that she has had that has taught her resilience and inner strength and courage and, fighting for, fighting for justice and being thorough and being detail oriented and being a fighter, like I said, and being a focused person and a strong person and very, very determined, very, particular with her words and her choices, and very skilled, and she have been through some experiences that to me heavily equipped her with the understanding and the drive and the determination and the intention and the focus and everything needed to save America from the fate that it's about to experience. the reckoning that is about to experience, you know, to help this country and put it on the right track. But the thing is about that I've learned about America is that this country is designed for unity. It is designed for unity. The government was designed to work with unity and, patriotism in the sense of love of country, like some real, honest to goodness love of country, like the kind of love of country that you put yourself and your own wants and your own ambitions aside to put the country first, like genuinely put the country first, and make choices that would be put the country in a better place and be better for the country, you know. And what I have come to understand is that what is left of the Republican Party, I don't know who the patriots were of this party, are the courageous people. The only one that I could think of one extremely courageous Republican and a few semi-courageous Republicans. So I could think of one extremely courageous Republican, one courageous Republican that would be like under the extremely courageous Republican, and then a few semi-courageous Republicans. So the one extremely courageous Republican that I could think of is John McCain. I mean, like, there was a few times that memories that I have of John McCain that I will never forget, in which he was, in my opinion, extremely brave. And then the one that goes under him in terms of bravery, in terms of two that goes under him in terms of bravery and standing up for what's right, putting country first. Actually, putting country first is Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. And then the ones that I find that is semi-brave, a little bit under those two, would be Mitt Romney, Jeff Flake, Mitt Romney and Jeff Flake. Yeah. And, as I was listening to this book, it reminded me of some things that I got to witness, Like, I wanted to talk about chapter 9, which is smart on security. But since I just talked about Republicans unintentionally, I will fast forward a little bit to chapter 10, which is what I've learned. And there was a part in chapter 10, what I've learned, where in that chapter, she listed some of the things that she learned in life, And one of the things that she discussed was under the heading, if it's worth fighting for, it's a fight worth having. And in that chapter, she was talking about the confirmation hearings of Brett Kavanaugh. And it reminded me of how weak and disgusting and awful how disgusting the men of the Republican Party and most of the Republican senators were. That they did what they did because it was all about power. They put somebody who was obviously wrong, who was, if you were putting country first, and if you were actually trying to put a good Supreme Court justice in place, that wasn't about coalescing your power or siding with your positions or agenda driven partisan hack of a judge. You were putting somebody with decent character who was going to be fair and who was going to put the country first and be fair to people and not just your objectives and your agenda, your nefarious, evil, cruel agenda, Christian nationalist ideological agenda. You wouldn't have put this person in place. So, it reminded me of that. There's this temptation I have of wanting to read you so much I wanted to focus on one chapter at a time, and I wanted to read of the last two chapters of this book, one chapter at a time, and I wanted to read from Smart on Security. So I like to read you some excerpts from this book, But like I said, I really recommend that you read this book, because for me, I couldn't listen to this book and imagine that this person that wrote this book, that understood what was going on in the way that she understood what was going on at the time that she wrote this book. And then, she stepped up and became vice president and experienced even more and learned even more since then. And, grew more experience and learned more about everything since then. I find it very, very hard to believe that person, if I was writing this movie or series or whatever, that person wasn't just going home and preparing for a future political run, or wasn't just going home and being a wife, or she wasn't chilling, she wasn't going back to her life, she wasn't moving on just yet, or thinking about what next in the sense of her future in politics or what she's going to do next. If I was writing a story, this character would be talking to people and investigating things, and she would be behind the scenes putting together efforts in which to investigate. She would be behind the scenes, like doing stuff, honestly. And I don't know, but anyway, my work on the this is from Smart on Security. This is from Smart on Security. My work on the Intelligence Committee and the Homeland Security Committee covers a broad range of issues, from building and maintaining counterterrorism capability at home and abroad, to the work of disrupting and destroying ISIS, to protecting and securing our borders, to the challenge of nuclear proliferation, to the ever delicate balance between gathering intelligence and protecting civil liberties. But rather than run through a laundry list of issues we deal with in all their complexity, I want to focus on a few threats that keep me up at night. First and foremost, I think of cybersecurity, a new front in a new kind of battle. If we had a daily visual of attacks underway, of explosions in our cities, of Russian, Chinese, North Korean, and Iran warplanes overhead, the American people would insist we respond, clear in the knowledge that the future of the American experiment was very much at risk. But cyber warfare is silent warfare, and its silent consequences are often difficult to grasp before the damage is done. I sometimes refer to it as a war without blood. There are no soldiers in the field, no bullets and bombs. But the reality is cyber warfare aims to weaponize infrastructure, and at its worst could result in casualties. Imagine, for example, a cyber attack on railroad switching signals, or hospital generators, or a nuclear power plant. The intelligence community and private communities alike are waging a defensive battle against cyber attacks on a minute-by-minute basis. But the reality is that we still remain unprepared for this new kind of terrain. Our systems and infrastructures need to be seriously upgraded. We are currently under attack. Our elections are top of mind, especially given the nefarious and effective attacks by the Russian government. The January 2017 assessment found that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the US presidential election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the US democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. Though many have become numb to it through the news cycle, the significance of this finding is hard to overstate. The intelligence community assessed with a high degree of confidence that Russian intelligence services conducted cyber operations to hack into the US presidential campaign and to release data they gathered with the intent of influencing the outcome of the election. Russian agents and propagandists exploited US social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to spread false and inflammatory information about Secretary Clinton and to stoke divisions in the United States. And what I think is very telling is exactly how they went about it. They focused on hot button issues from race to LGBTQ and immigrant rights. This means that they knew that racism and other forms of hate have always been our nation's Achilles heel. They knew precisely where to strike. They knew precisely where to strike us, deliberately targeting and tearing away at some of the most painful, divisive parts of our nation's history. I first made this point during an intelligence committee meeting. A few days later, I was sitting at my desk on the Senate floor, the last one in the far back. I had chosen the desk for two reasons. It wasn't visible on the C-SPAN cameras, which made it easier for me to concentrate on the work at hand. But more important, it was the desk closest to the candy drawer. I looked up and noticed that Senator James Lankford, a Republican from Oklahoma, was walking toward me, literally crossing the aisle so we could have a conversation. Kamala, I've been listening to what you've been saying about race as our Achilles heel, and I think you're onto something important, he said. Personally, I think it starts with the question, have you had a family over to your house that doesn't look like you? Have you ever really had that kind of interaction? I think that's a good place to start. I'm glad to hear you say that, I told him. We have to start somewhere. Langford and I sat across each other in closed sessions of the Intelligence Committee. And though there are very few things we agree about when it comes to policy, I found him to be genuinely kind and thoughtful. It didn't take long for us to build a friendship. Together with our colleagues on the committee, we spent more than a year working with the intelligence community to understand the information that led to January 2017 assessment about Russian attacks. Of particular interest to me was the threat of Russian penetration of our election equipment itself. In May 2018, we released our preliminary findings on the issue of election security. We let the public know that in 2016, the Russian government had conducted a coordinated cyber campaign against the election infrastructure of at least 18 individual states, and possibly as many as 21. Other states also saw malicious activity, which the intelligence community has been unable to attribute to Russia. What we do know is that Russia operatives scan election databases looking for vulnerabilities. They attempted to break in, and in some cases, they were actually successful in penetrating voter registration databases. Thankfully, as of May 2018, our committee had not seen any evidence that actual vote tallies or voter registration rolls were changed. But given our limited information on state audits, forensic examination of the state's own infrastructures, we cannot rule out that activities were successfully carried out that we just don't know about. In our report, we raised concerns about a number of potential vulnerabilities that remain in our election infrastructure. Voting systems are outdated, and many of them do not have paper record of votes. Without a paper record, there is no way to reliably audit a vote tally and confirm that numbers haven't been changed. We found that 30 states use paperless voting machines in some jurisdictions, and that 5 states use them exclusively, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation that cannot be reconciled and reversed. We also found that many of our election systems are connected to the internet, leaving them open to hacking. Eventually, even systems not regularly connected to the internet are nevertheless updated by software that must be downloaded from the internet. It's misleading to suggest that impenetrable cybersecurity is possible. Our focus must be on defending against, detecting, deterring, managing, and mitigating any effort to do us harm. There's a grim joke. What's the difference between being hacked and not being hacked? Knowing you've been hacked. The truth hurts, but we simply cannot afford to be naive. To help members of Congress and their staff understand the nature of the risk, I invited a computer science and engineering professor from the University of Michigan to visit the Capitol, and demonstrate the ease with which a hacker could change an election's outcome. We gathered in a room in the Capitol Visitor Center where the professor has set up a paperless voting machine used in numerous states, including swing states like Florida, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. 4 senators participated. Senators Lankford, Richard Burr, Claire McCaskill, and me. And the room was filled with staffers who had come to better understand the process. The professor simulated a vote for president, where we were given a choice between George Washington and the infamous Revolutionary War traitor Benedict Arnold. As you might imagine, all 4 of us voted for George Washington, but when the result came back, Benedict Arnold had prevailed. The professor had used malicious code to hack the software of the voting machine in a way that assured Arnold's victory, no matter how the 4 of us had voted. He told us that the machine was very easily hacked, enough so that in the demonstration elsewhere, he turned one into a video game console and played Pac-Man on it. Can you imagine? America's electoral infrastructure consists of outdated machines and local officials who often have little or no cyber threat training. When you consider how many major corporations have experienced data breaches, despite having invested in the best cybersecurity money can buy, our vulnerability becomes all the more stark. Some might think it is alarmist to be talking this way, but I think we should be preparing to defend against the worst case scenarios. The worst case scenario that foreign actors will target these outmoded machines and manipulate vote tallies. Given Russia's unprecedented effort to undermine confidence in our election system, While attempting to interfere with the outcome of the presidential election, there's no question that the Kremlin is emboldened, along with other state and non state actors, to try again. At the time, James Lankford and I were the only members of the Senate who served on both the Homeland Security and Intelligence committees. As such, we were uniquely suited to come together in a nonpartisan way to develop legislation to combat these attacks. At the end of 2017, together with other senators, we introduced a bill, the Secure Elections Act, that would protect the United States from future foreign interference in our elections. The legislation, which grew out of hearings and testimony in front of both the Homeland Security and Intelligence committees, would improve cybersecurity information sharing between federal and state agencies. It would create a process by which election officials could receive top secret security clearance, allowing them to have timely access to classified material. As in the case where we learned that Russia had attacked their machines, it would establish clear expert guidelines for securing election systems and it would establish clear expert guidelines for securing election systems, including, for example, the need for paper ballots. Russia might be able to hack a machine from afar, but it can't hack a piece of paper. And it would provide 386 million in grants for cybersecurity improvements. It would also establish what's known as a bug bounty program for election infrastructure, commonly used in tech firms. A bug bounty is a system by which altruistic hackers are paid for identifying software vulnerabilities. It's an economically efficient way to quickly patch bugs that could be exploited by malicious actors. We owe it to ourselves to continually test our system securities, just as we test the smoke alarm in our home. No one wants to wait for the house to catch fire in order to realize the battery's dead. Remarkably, despite the bill's bipartisan support as of this writing, it has yet to receive a vote in the United States Senate. Though it was introduced nearly a year before the 2018 midterm elections, the White House opposed the bill and the Senate Majority Leader refused to bring it to the floor. And so I am indeed kept up at night knowing the scale of our vulnerabilities, knowing that the actions we should be taking immediately have stalled out without any justification. All right, so this, like I said, I'm listening to this book on Audible, so I'm listening to it in her voice, which is really, really cool. Hearing her writing in her own voice. And I feel like this chapter is so important. This entire book is very, very good. And it really gives you a perspective of what the mistake that was made, that what was stolen, the destiny that was stolen, and the mistake that was made, the choices that we had. And I just keep remembering from the movie, the Indiana Jones movie, where someone had to make a choice between the cup of life, and they chose the fence, looking for the cup of eternal life. It was supposed to be a cup that Jesus drank from or something like that. And it would give you eternal life if you drank from the fountain out of this cup. And the person chose the fancier cup, the flashy cup, the cup that, the facade was beautiful, whatever. And there was this other cup that was a humble cup. It's just an ordinary cup, very, it was an ordinary cup. And he chose the fancy cup. He was a billionaire. He chose And he chose the fancier cup. And he died. And the guys, the person that was guarding the cup for these many years, he said he chose poorly, you know? And I keep thinking, the people that didn't choose correctly, that chose the facade, the narrative, the gaslighting, the lying, the deceit, that chose that flash as opposed to someone more substantive, you know, they chose poorly, 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 poorly. So in this chapter, Smart on Security, she also talked about the effects of climate change and how climate change, affects everything. Everything. How it's something that the government needs to start thinking about and preparing for, and thinking about. And there was even a part where that I highlight where she talked about, okay, let me just read this part. And if it isn't floods, it's fires. Fires aren't caused by climate change, but they are exacerbated by it. Higher temperatures and longer dry spells turn our forests into kindling. California has always had wildfires, but because of climate change, they're becoming more frequent and getting bigger and bigger. When I was Attorney General, I had toured a fire overhead by helicopter. From the height and scale of the devastation from that height, the scale of the devastation came into view. Entire streets, entire neighborhoods burned to the ground. It looked like a graveyard with chimneys as headstones. In August 2018, I flew home to California to meet firefighters and evacuees from the Mendocino complex fire, which burned more than 450,000 acres, making it the largest in the state's history. I just highlighted that part because we were talking about these things. She was talking about these things, in 2017 or whenever this book was written. These things were the issues that we're dealing with now. Everything that is coming to a head, the reckoning that we're about to experience, people that live in this country and the entire world. These things were being talked about and discussed and warned about for a long period of time. And if a woman that just ran for president against the yuckiness that she just ran against, the liar, the deceiver, the cheater, the lifetime liar, the billionaire, the person that cares nothing about anybody, that's just asset to another country, that sold his country out for money. She understood the assignment. She understood what we needed to deal with and address. And she was trying from the positions that she was in from her positions of power to affect the change and to make people wake up and prepare and do the things and now, up against greedy SOBs that all they could think about, so damn short-sighted, all they could think about is wealth and power and not the future of this planet and not the future for future generations, and could care less about anybody but their damn self. And I find it very, I had to, as I was reading this book, I had to pause and pray and, cry a little and process and be saying things like, it can't be too late, right? Is it too late? Is it too late? Is it too late? All right, so the chapter ended like this. We live in an uncertain world, one filled with complexity and danger. The challenges we face in the future will be new and nuanced, and they will require us to mobilize based on being smart, not being afraid. There will be hard decisions to make, to be sure, of the kind that no previous generation has had to consider, and yet it will serve us well to remember what it was that helped us protect the American people and secure the peace in generations leading up to this moment. We must remember that we are a nation of laws, that we stand for the rule of law. We must remember that we have worked and in some cases for bled an international order that promotes peace and cooperation, a commitment to democracy here and around the world, and reject despots and tyrants and dictators who ruled their countries based on their self-interest alone, not the interests of the people they are meant to serve. Imperfect though we have been, ours is the history in pursuit of a better, safer, freer world. In the years to come, with all the challenges to come, we cannot lose sight of who we are and who we can be. Well, I have more to say and more to talk about, more to read, but my question is, okay, what's next? What now? What now? What are you doing, Kamala Harris? What are you doing? What are we doing? What's gonna happen? What next? All I can say is knowledge is power, and we gotta do the best we can to be messengers of truth, love, and light, and to do the work, to do what we feel called to do.